Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Katie Huff with Katie Huff Ministries. I'm so excited. We have another amazing podcast today with Dr. Mark Sherwood, which I am so thrilled to have here. He is like the man that is the picture of health and wants us to be healthy, and we're going to be able to learn from him. So please go to sherwood.tv to learn more for sure. And definitely be following us on YouTube with KDF Ministries and subscribe. Go to Facebook, go to Spotify, Apple, Rumble, X, you name it. I don't want you to miss this incredible information that you're about to hear. So I'm thrilled to have Dr. Mark Sherwood. He's an incredible servant and he's a fabulous physician, and we get to learn so much from him. So thank you, Dr. Mark, for being here. It's such a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Katie, for having me as always, and I appreciate the kind introduction. And I echo what you said to your audience. This is going to be some really life-changing, at least potentially, information if people receive it that way. Additionally, with what you're doing, I appreciate that so much. My wife and I honor that. You're actually trying to spread truth and you don't hold anything back. And
Mhm.
for that, you have our kudos because a lot of folks out there will just kind of give you half or whatever, or three quarters for the sake of trying to salvage viewers and salvage followers. And you don't do that. So that's why it's always an honor to be with you.
Oh, God bless you. I really appreciate you and Michelle, and I'm excited for people to be able to hear the truth, and it will set you free according to our little John 10:10 in the
Mhm.
Bible, and we give all the glory to Jesus. So we're happy we're here. I love your hope hat. Hope.
Yeah, I decided to wear this today because I wanted to really demonstrate hope dealership today. There you go.
Awesome. Well, let's just dive in. And we were talking about the 7 pillars of health. So some people probably don't even know all 7, and it would be great for us to just share with them what that looks like and how to be the best version of themselves.
Well, these 7 pillars, Katie, are exactly what we do with every single person that comes into our presence. And I've said it like this, we're like an empty light socket. When someone comes in, they plug into that and they get fired up,
Mm.
they get full of health and full of hope. And if I get out of my way and my wife gets out of her way, God does a pretty good job. But
Yeah,
when we get in the way, we sort of short circuit that power. But there are 7 pillars of health that we really need to understand that really epitomize really the majority of life. And I will overlay these pillars with 2 overriding themes, let's just say, or overriding environmental themes. So here's the 7 pillars. And the first 4 we have direct control over. One is nutrition,
mm,
what we put in our mouth, obviously. Second one is sleep.
mm,
The third one is stress management. And that's a whole big discussion in itself, but we do have control over that one. And the fourth one is movement or exercise. So again, we've got sleep, nutrition, stress management, and movement. Those are the first 4 because we have direct control or we have a direct hand in actually having management of those things ourselves. They fall into the area of personal responsibility. Obviously, we
amen.
sometimes need some help with that.
Yes.
You go on from that. The number 5 we is genetics, and so it's a big deal to understand that our genes have changed only 2% in 10,000 years.
Wow.
So they're not the ones that cause the disease, folks. No, no, it's not that at all. The genes are like a loaded gun, and the environment in which we create in those previous 4, in part, pulls the trigger. It's like guns don't kill people, people kill people. So the
Right.
environment in this case is the murderer, if you want to get right down to the core of that analogy. So we've got genetics as number 5. Number 6, we have hormones. Now, hormones is a subject matter that's often confused today.
Right.
Hormones have been told to cause cancer, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that statement can be refuted simply with this statement is if hormones cause cancer, that would mean every girl and every boy,
Mhm.
when they reach puberty, would have cancer. So there's other things to it. So hormones are a big, big deal.
Right.
Uh, Number 7, we have peptides, and peptides are short chains of amino acids that can be structured in a compounding lab, which mimic what our bodies already produce, but we just produce them less effectively and less in volume as we age. Peptides can help with brain health. They can
Mm.
help restore immune function. They can help lose fat. They can help restore skin. They can reduce wrinkles. They can build muscle, bone, help mitochondria, et cetera. So those areas, those are the seven. Now, there's two overriding environmental themes that we've got to consider.
Right.
One is emotional, where
Mm.
a person is in life, and that can be, their life occurrence, their life partners, their family, their economic status, and how that affects them emotionally. And then spiritually speaking, there's a piece within us that, and I use the word PIEC in that context, PIECE in that context, because there's a piece within us that only really we understand under the idea that's that little voice inside you that says, I probably shouldn't be in this bar at 2 in the morning, or I'm probably in this position I need to leave. There's nobody out here, whether they are a Christian or not, that doesn't understand that voice. I call it the essence of who we are as people. It's really your spiritual self. And
Right.
obviously for us here, we actually seek the source of that, which is God Himself, which really brings that peace,
Mm.
PIECE, into
Mhm.
peace, PEACE. And so that's really the only thing that does it. So all those seven pillars wrapped around and in and through those two environmental factors really epitomize the way to look at a human being. And when you focus, care, coaching, testing, implementation of strategies in those areas like that, on the backside, you get the most beautiful picture of what humanity is supposed to be about. It's a high quality of life, being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want, as much as you want, and not hurt. I think
Mhm.
that's a good way to define it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and a lot of times, obviously people don't break this down as well as you have, which is awesome. So, where would you like to start in all of this in regards to encouraging people to make good decisions?
Well, I think the first area that I think it wise to start with is an area of stress. A lot of people view this completely wrong, Katie. And I use that word intentionally. I
Mm.
always cautious about using that word wrong because there's always a word right that's opposite that.
Exactly.
So stress has been misdefined in my firm belief in literature, in English language, even in conversation as a noun.
Mhm.
Like stress is a person, place, or thing, something you can put in a bucket. We remember that from old English class. But that's not stress. Stress is actually, and I hope people catch this definition, it's an action we take in response to life's expected or unexpected occurrences.
Mm.
Again, one more time, an
Mm.
action we take in response to life's expected or unexpected occurrences. We were talking prior to going live. I'll give you two examples of this about skiing, right? So let's say a person goes skiing and the ski lifts are crowded and you have to
Mm.
wait. But
Right.
you really can't wait to go down that slope. You're just so excited to feel the breeze and to the whoosh and the
Yeah.
speed and the
Yeah.
thrill and all that stuff. But the ski lift is crowded and you have to wait
Hmm.
20, 30 minutes. And all of a sudden, people are dogging around and you're seeing delays up front of you. Okay, that's a moment in time that could create a response of stress. You
Right.
could get anxiety, you could get the heart rate going up, blood pressure goes up, muscle tension goes up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
But that was a decision you made
Right.
based upon what you perceived to be an unnecessary delay,
Mm.
right? So it was an action you took. So the other action you could have taken in that is decide, based upon that same perception, that, you know what, maybe I'm supposed to stand up here on the top of this mountain a little bit longer. Maybe there's a view I'm supposed to see
Yeah.
a little bit more clear. Maybe there's some breeze, and maybe there's a tree, and maybe there's a person. Maybe there's a situation that I'm divinely delayed to deal with.
Amen.
The other example is like a traffic jam, obviously, same context.
Yeah.
But when you get down to it, life is full of a bunch of things that we sort of create, and some
Mhm.
things we don't. And sometimes I can't find a reason for it, good, bad, or indifferent. I just can't. Why do planes fly into buildings and why
Mhm.
do hurricanes blow over buildings? I mean, on and
Mhm.
on and on. It's just part of this thing we call life, good,
Right.
bad, indifferent, ugly, pretty, whatever. And it's our decision on
Mm,
what we do with what we see. And so stress then is not a noun, it is a verb. If
mm,
it's a verb and if it's an action, because stress isn't a verb's an action step, then that gives us control. And the
right.
reason I think it's good to start there is because a lot of people will say, erroneously, and your words create, but they'll say, I'm under too much stress, therefore, you see, so if I'm under stress, that means stress is something that can control me because it's a noun, it's a weight. But stress is none of the above.
Right.
Stress is a decision we make. So when I look at this, it requires shifting the brain around and shifting thinking and shifting perceptions and turning off the noise.
Right.
But Katie, I feel that's a very important point that people need to really consider in shifting the way stress is defined.
I agree. And the things that are coming to my mind is like we have the ability to control the controllables, and that is what we think and
Yep.
what and what you think about comes about.
Hmm.
So you want to focus on, like you said, taking the view of the mountain as you're skiing versus being frustrated because the little kid just swooshed in front of you and about knocked you over, and
Yeah,
think they didn't, or whatever the situation is. But obviously that is, I've always said that God is our protector and our provider. And to your point, that sometimes you just have to pause and say, there's a reason for everything. And maybe I'm just to pause and take in the big picture instead of getting high blood pressure or
right.
stressing out. And then obviously that response is a physical response. And you would be able to describe that even probably better than me.
Yeah, it's funny that, in the autonomic nervous system, ANS, as it's described, is this automatic system that God put in us. And it's sort of driven in our central nervous system by what we do in our mind. So the mind then is outside, it's completely outside of the brain. The mind is not in the brain, it's outside of the brain. The mind is really how we perceive things. That's why we read in Romans 12, 1 and 2 about renewing the mind or making it
Mhm.
new. I like to
Yes.
look at the mind like almost like a funnel that's out of your head, so the funny imagery, but think about you, Katie, and me, Mark, having a funnel out of our head that's open at the top, but the little end is stuck in our brain. And so that open funnel is like an open funnel to the environmental forces around us. And if we're not infilling that, infusing that, or putting into that what we want,
Right.
it will be filled with other things. The mind is never empty, despite what people say. To clear the mind is impossible because the mind is always open to anything. When we say I'm clearing the mind, we're actually filling it up with clarity. You see how that works, right?
Mhm.
So it's an interesting dilemma, but that mind is a filter. So outside of the mind receives signals based upon what we remember, what we see, and how we associate our perception with pictures.
Right.
And that filters into our mind, into our brain. And then our brain sort of shoots out these chemicals based upon all of that. There's a fork in the road at the autonomic nervous system, right and left,
Mhm.
or left and right, however you want to look at it.
Right.
One side is going to be the stress side. It's called a SNS, or sympathetic nervous system arousal. The
Mm.
other side is called the PSNS, or parasympathetic nervous system arousal. On the SNS side, we initially start making adrenaline, which comes from the adrenals, short-lived chemical. But if the situation that creates a stress is not dealt with quick enough, we
Mm.
make this longer acting hormone called cortisol. Now,
Yeah.
cortisol is supposed to, by nature, increase blood pressure, increase muscle tension, increase vasodilation. It's supposed to increase perspiration and all these things because we're getting ready to get into a fight. We're going to run from something or we're going to run to something. It decreases digestion. We need to really catch that.
Mm.
Stress, cortisol decreases digestion, and it's going to make perfect sense when I explain why. And it decreases libido. or desire for sex. And that makes perfect sense too. And this is God's design, not Mark's interpretation. This is God's design. Now, the other side, PSNS, sort of is the opposite, relaxation. Of course, we see blood pressure go down, we see heart rate go down, we see muscle tension go down, perspiration go down, digestion go up. Remember the term, the association rest and digest, and the desire for sex, procreation, libido would go up. And again, this makes perfect sense
Yeah, yeah,
because if the genes have changed 2% in 10,000 years, our bodies are the same as the body of Jesus when he walked the earth. They're the
right.
same as Noah and his wife when they got off the boat. It's the same. So if it's the same, whether it's waiting on a ski lift or waiting on a traffic jam, our interpretation might be different. Perception might be different based upon what we commonly experience in today's world. But internally, responsiveness wise, it's the same as it was 10,000 years ago. We are running from a bear that's trying to eat us.
Mhm.
So at that point in time, stress, we don't have time to stop and eat an apple. We don't have, why would digestion even think about it? Because the expressive threat is outside of us. You don't stop on the side of the trail and have sex because the bear is going to eat you and your partner, right? That doesn't make sense.
That's
So you
crazy.
can see this is not far-fetched. This is very commonsensical, the way it was supposed to be. But we don't think about this today.
No,
The whole idea of the way we do medicine, doctorhood, whatever you want to call this, is so backwards. You know, when we look at this, I'm under stress. Okay, stop. False definition. So false definition creates false premise, creates false protocols,
right.
right? So what if we turned it around and said, and you know, let's pretend, okay, Dr. Katie, I'm going to you. I am feeling stress right now. And you say to me, okay, let's go back and work on your perceptions. Okay.
Good.
Instead of this, Dr. Katie, I'm under stress and you can see my blood pressure's up. In today's world, here's your lisinopril.
Yeah,
And I'm really depressed too about this, Katie. And in today's world, here's your Xanax.
yeah.
You know, see, it's so backwards that it's like it's almost to the point of farcically backwards, comically backwards, insanity wise, it's backwards. And when you start challenging people with these thought processes here, you challenge a culture and a belief system. It's exactly what Jesus dealt with
Mhm.
when he walked the earth because he challenged that Pharisaical, that religious spirit, that
Yeah,
culture, and all he did was ask questions.
I know. I
And
mean,
you see how that brought about defensiveness. You know, Katie, people get defensive
oh
when
yeah.
you start questioning why they believe what they believe. And to
Mhm.
me, I think the greatest conversations are had when people have dialogue like this, you know, and it's
Well, it
it's
gives you,
good.
yeah, it's an opportunity to grow and
Yes.
also heal
Yes. Learn a few
instead of,
things.
yeah, and instead of, I mean, as a registered nurse who sold pharmaceutical sales,
Hmm.
I mean, it's crazy. I think in general, a lot of times people want the easy way out.
Yep.
And so, like that prescription is the easy way out versus saying, okay, let's go back to the root,
Mhm.
bears the fruit of what goes on in our life.
I think that's very wise what you said, and this goes into an area that's very biblically parallel here.
Yeah.
In today's world, in modern day Christianity, Jesus is known as the pill for the ill,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Medicine is known as the pill for an ill. Both are wrong. Both are completely skewed in their perception. Both need to elicit and communicate the need for behavioral change.
Right.
One, to avoid disease processes that are self-generated, self-created, self-chosen. And two, to avoid consequences of sin that are self-generation, self-generated, self-chosen,
Yes.
self-made.
Yes.
Jesus didn't go around like a genie in the bottle and just deal with people. I mean, yes, he healed the sick. I'm saying that's true. but he never once just healed the sick without talking about a behavioral change or a belief change. I mean, remember, he is non-judgmental, but there is judgment. He is merciful, but he's not a genie in a bottle.
Right.
He is a father, but he's also a leader. He's an exemplary person, but he doesn't take away your responsibility. You
Right.
see, and we tend to get it all messed up, and it's just
Yeah.
it's crazy to think how far we've transgressed. It makes me very sad. My wife was
Right.
asking me just recently, um, do you get mad about what's going on in the world? And I guess sometimes maybe a little, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think I get more sad and frustrated with it because I see so much better opportunities for mankind, especially in the areas of, health and wellness, and whether that pertains to physical, emotional, spiritual, all of them.
Right. Right. It's like that Proverbs, that I pulled up here, that is 4:23 to 27, but even just more than anything, we need to guard, protect our mind,
Hmm.
for life flows from it. And what we
Mm,
focus on expands.
yes,
And that's so important.
it will. And just like that funnel illustration that anybody can understand,
Right.
we have to proactively guard that. And the best way to guard it is to keep it full so that it's so full at the top, nothing else can get in. But you have to do that intentionally on a daily and or continual basis. Because if you don't,
Right.
the enemy, which,
Yeah.
the devil's not everywhere, but his influence is everywhere. His
Mm.
influence is in the earth because his influence is right now in control of the earth with permission for a time, right? That's it.
Right.
So we have to be intentional about being in the world, which we are. Can't
Right.
take that, but
Right.
not of the world. And so how do
Right.
we do that? We have to continue to remind ourselves where we're from, where we're going back to, what is our purpose, what is
Mhm.
our destiny, what should we be thinking, how should we be acting, and God cares about anything we do, from whether we go skiing or whether we drive down this road or turn left or right, or how we make our hair, or what kind of hats we wear. He cares about those things. So
Right.
those are intentional acts we do, hopefully, based
Right.
upon wise counsel from the wisest of all counselor.
Amen. That's for sure. Yeah. So, I want to take us back to cortisol, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, because that is such a high conversation, more so I
Mhm.
think today than ever.
Oh yeah.
So, and that obviously is, you know, going to affect how we think, how we act. And that's just one of the many things that is going on in our body, obviously, that you've already shared. That I mean, people are wanting more cortisol because it affects so many positive
Yeah.
things.
Well, when you look at cortisol, people need to know that it is a hormone that
Yeah.
is made from the backbone of cholesterol. So let's understand that premise right there. So a lot of people get concerned when LDL cholesterol goes up. Now, LDL is a molecule of protein that carries cholesterol, like cholesterol's along for the ride, like a piggyback rider to
Right.
this protein LDL. And it's manufactured in the body for the most part, and it's carried in different places based upon need. Now, cortisol also manufactures all other hormones too, such as vitamin D and such as your sex steroid hormones, right?
Right.
So cortisol, when it's made for the reasons we discussed earlier, and it's a great hormone. I mean, we need
Right.
it for life, and
Right.
you're not going to be able to go down skiing a slope if you don't have a good amount of cortisol because you're not going to have the alertness. So it does promote alertness, perhaps hyper focus, sometimes even tunnel vision, because you're focused on that threat, that thing. In other words, you can't be thinking about this over here, that over there. You have to think about your balance first and all this stuff, right? I'm using the ski analogy because we
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about this earlier.
Right.
But cortisol is also known as a glucocorticoid. Gluco prefix glucose sounds like glucose.
Right.
That's significant because when cortisol is driven, it does create the synthesis of glucose in the system for fast, quick,
Mm.
very usable, expendable, and drainable energy. And that's a big deal
Yeah, it is.
because we need it. Remember, we don't have time to digest. We don't have time. So we start breaking down and using existing sources of anything that can create glucose, including over time, the breakdown of protein. So
Mm.
protein and amino acids can get broken down to form glucose. That's a process called gluconeogenesis or new genesis, new creation of glucose. And
Oh,
again, glucose stores are also in our muscle cells and liver as glycogen. So this stuff gets utilized when we're under stress. Now, too much stress, too much glucose going on over time. Notice I didn't say anything about fat tissue, did I?
no.
So it can promote retention of fat tissue
Mm.
and loss of muscle,
Wow.
which when we have that, if you have this loss of muscle, gain of fat,
Hmm.
that would be depending on what you weigh, it would be obesity or even sarcopenic obesity,
Right.
right? That slows down metabolism. You can also begin to lose bone because muscle tissue goes down, movement goes down, the synthesis of bone development goes down. So then we're talking about, does it contribute to osteoporosis? Yes. A
Mm.
lot of people throw out the terms today too about adrenal exhaustion or adrenal burnout. Well,
Right.
there's Cushing's and there's Addison's. Those are the two ends of the spectrum on either burnout, from the adrenal glands to even produce it, you'd be flatlined, or too much, obviously, which is a hypercortisolemic situation. But both of those are sort of this autoimmune kind of condition.
Right.
But most people, when they sort of come to see a clinician in this area, they're always saying, well, how do I get more energy? Right. But so you can see how they've got to change the whole thinking about this. They got
Right.
to change the whole perception. And one other area that needs to be mentioned too, and the reason people have so much difficulty, Katie, changing is because we have a two-sided brain. One
Hmm.
side's an emotional side.
Hmm.
Generally speaking, we do that emotional processing,
Hmm.
reactivity thinking. The
Hmm.
other side's your critical thinking side, which takes a little bit of time. It's logic. It's let's think through this. Let's pause. Let's have a divine delay. Let's really analyze what we have, what we're dealing with. Too much cortisol gets us stuck in the emotional side.
Mm.
It gets us used to operating in the emotional side. It gets it so normal that Dr. Hans Selye coined a term, general adaptation syndrome,
Wow.
GAS. The irony of that.
Right.
So we get so used to operating in that emotional side, the hypercortisol side, which by the way, which disturbs sleep, the whole bit, right?
Right.
We get so used to that, it becomes normal. And the body will try to adjust. It will try to stay there. And you're in that. And this is a
Right.
good test for everybody listening. Go down and try to sit down for 15 minutes. Just sit still. No cell phone, no body, no talking, no dog, no husband, no wife, just quiet. And if that thought stresses you out right now, you're there, simply put.
I would love to sit for 15 minutes and not
Yeah, well,
think about
most of us can
anything.
get stuck in that
Yeah.
thing, even
Yeah.
inadvertently, because we have so much opportunity today through the beauty. I mean, we complain about AI and electronics and internet, but look, I get to know you. We get to know you. Come on, man. Is that not cool? You
Yeah.
get to share the gospel, a truth. You get to share this podcast around the world. Anybody in any language can get this right now. And if they don't understand what's happening, they can get an artificial intelligence program and get it interpreted. I mean,
Amazing.
yeah, and but we can accomplish so much
Right.
in the advancement of the technological area. We can also get so stuck in it, we forget about the personal responsibility of wellness we do have,
Right.
which is sometime to be, I talked at the beginning of the podcast about being connected to the right source.
Right. Right.
You know, sometimes we have to connect to different things, but you don't need to stay connected to it all the time.
Exactly.
This is one of those things.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like there's such a fear in our world right now,
Hmm.
everywhere, because there's so much going on. And I've always said it's false evidence appearing real.
You bet. You
So
bet.
again, you have the choice of what you focus on expands.
Hmm.
And are you going to focus on the fear? Or are you going to focus on faith?
Yeah.
And God's plan is perfect and it's right on time. And I always say he's never early, but he's never
No.
late.
Well, you know what's fascinating? A lot of people don't get this connection. I really appreciate you going here today, by the way, because a lot of
Mm.
people don't take the time to think about it. Those adrenal glands and our bodies also, at the same time we're producing cortisol, they also begin to generate a neurotransmitter pathway,
Mhm.
which are called your
Wow.
catecholamines, which are adrenaline going to eventually epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, now this is important because those things come from dopamine. Now, dopamine, kind of a long term, but let's shorten it to dope. Dope can become addicting.
Yes.
Dopamine, anybody that's listening can understand maybe a runner's high, an exercise
Mhm.
high,
Mhm.
a skiing high, an achievement high. You reached 1 million followers, 1 million listeners on your podcast. That's going to give you dopamine. And
Yes.
we remember back in school, and we're probably dating ourselves here, there were such things as dope dealers.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, kind of gave me the idea for hope dealer here.
Hope and hope today.
Yeah. So we're hope dealers today. But
Yeah.
when we can get addicted to that. So this is why a lot of your podcast experts out here, and they'll
Hmm.
tell you this, and it's no secret. They'll tell you to make your thumbnails and make your headings so shock oriented, so fear based, so anxiety ridden, so
Mhm.
attention getting, whether that's about your podcast or not, it doesn't matter
Right.
because that gets people hooked in there.
Right.
So they're looking desperately for fear today because it gives them a rush. They want to
Mm.
know the newest, the breaking news and all this stuff. And the breaking news, conspiracy, who's doing this behind the scenes. Let me see if I can figure out the end times. Let me see if I can decode this stuff. And
Right.
really, does it even matter?
Right.
I mean, you got to go, does this even matter? You know what matters is if you get up during the day and um, you adjust to what you see
Hmm.
and you do the best that you can. You get out of your own way and maybe ask God to help you do a few things, hopefully all of them.
Right.
And then if you wake up tomorrow, you do it again. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's we got to simplify things a lot more. I'm oversimplifying it for illustration and discussion purposes,
Which is
but
awesome.
it's so addicting today that people, I've got my phone right here. Okay. Um, because I always have it handy in case something goes wrong so we can
Oh yeah.
chime
You're a
in here.
doctor.
But yeah, but the bottom line is we get addicted to that thing.
I know.
Here's another test for people to determine if they're in that GAS, general adaptation syndrome mode. Put your phone down when you're in that 15-minute quiet where you can't see it, feel it, touch it, hear it. Get it away from you. The question, maybe this is a challenge for everybody listening today. Can you even do that?
Right.
I challenge you to do that. And you're going to find out that you get in there. And I used to do this a lot when I was speaking in public teaching sessions.
Hmm.
I would tell people in the whole room, and I would stop the workers, the hotel workers, banquet. I'd stop them. I'd say, stop right there and get quiet. And I said, now everybody look at your watch. Focus on the watch. Everybody had a watch. If you didn't have a watch, I would get them to watch their neighbor's watch. Don't want to look at anybody else. And I would start it in three, two, one, and I'd tell them be absolutely quiet and watch that second hand go around for 60 seconds. You could hear like this gasp of stress, you know,
Sure.
and then, but,
Yeah.
but you got into it about 15, 20 seconds. And I'm telling you, there was a calm that came across the room.
Yeah.
And then by the time that you got into about 45 seconds, 50, 55, Katie, there was a peace across that room.
Mhm.
Even in my own life as a speaker, the leader of that particular discussion. And it was a piece that was it's you can almost cut it with a knife.
Yeah.
And then
Palpable.
I'd always come back and I'd say 60 seconds. And I would lower my voice like that.
Yeah.
And it was you could feel the calm in people's lives because
Mm,
they actually subconsciously wanted to go further in that.
mm,
The body needs the counterbalance of that PSNS. They have to have
mm,
that
mm,
because if they don't get that, Katie, they're going to see a shortening of their life,
mhm,
not just a loss of muscle, not just a gain of fat,
mhm.
but a decline in their immune system's ability to defend themselves,
Wow.
a
This
decline in
is so
heart
good.
function, a decline in neurological function.
Yeah.
They're going to see their life span most likely shorten. They're going to see their quality of life diminish, and most likely their sick span, which is the time they're on all kinds of chronic medication,
Mhm.
also lengthen.
Wow. That is so good. I mean, we are always just as a society run, 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 and
Yeah,
do as much as we can and get us. I mean, the bag is full and overflowing, and we're
mhm,
still putting more in the bag versus just
yeah,
resting, which is such a critical piece to everything that you've shared today, is that just taking that time to pause. And you for me, even I just go, oh my gosh, if this isn't a
yeah.
2x4 for me, which I
Well,
really
I hope so.
appreciate.
It's interesting
Absolutely.
because people come in our offices, and they're all frantic, all the time, whether I'm doing online or whatever. And the frantic nature with which we go is like it's shocking when we start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And one last thing I'll share about cortisol, and I think this is
Yeah,
important. Cortisol will make you spiritually, emotionally deaf. You don't hear anymore.
that's not good.
All you want to do is talk because you want to defend that position because
Mm,
that's all you know. That is your language. That becomes your native language. That becomes your focus, and that can become your life, all of it.
wow. And that's the would be the biggest reason to not be over the top running
Yeah.
like one arm paper hanger all the time. Because I'll tell you, um, no one that knows Jesus ever wants to be not hearing from him, because
Mm-mm.
then to me it's like you're dead.
Totally.
And
No.
so, oh well,
Jesus
God
got
bless.
Jesus went for a walk. I read that too.
Yeah, it's like,
He's like,
Lord
y'all
have
go
mercy.
across the lake, man. I'm tired of this nonsense. I've done
Yeah,
enough. Let me just chill out and get away from y'all for a while.
yeah.
I mean, we miss that meaning, but it's true.
Well, look at the example of him when he was in the boat and everyone was freaking out over the
Yeah.
wave,
Yeah.
all his disciples. And he was just like, peace be still. And he just was like calm through
Yeah.
the through that. And it's just like, what an example for all of us to be
I
more
know.
like Jesus and rest. Oh my goodness.
Storms of life are real. Physical storms
Absolutely.
are real. Emotional storms are real. Spiritual storms are real. Some of them are created in our own minds. Some of them are imagined in our own minds, and some of them are real. But in all those things, we're called to do exactly that. Just be at peace and
Mm,
be still.
amen. Well, if this hasn't been a bomb of knowledge, I so appreciate this. Again, all of you that are listening, go to sherwood.tv. You have to follow Dr. Sherwood and his beautiful wife. They are such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so grateful to have him here. And please go to YouTube and subscribe and watch this video again, because there's so much in here. I don't want you to lose it. And also, I want to just remind you, for all of the women that are listening, March 24th to the 27th is Be Bold and Breakthrough Women's Retreat in Paradise, Montana. And you need to go to katy-huff.com/events and get the information, because we want you to be set free and be bold and break through whatever's holding you back and what God wants you to be, do, and have. So thank you so much for listening, all of you. God bless you. Thank you, Dr. Sherwood. I so appreciate you and all your knowledge and just you willing to share your heart and your experience to make us a better people. So God bless you, and I just appreciate you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Katie Huff with Katie Huff Ministries, and this is Bella Jean, and we're coming to you today to talk to you about setting yourself free by having first a great night's sleep. How's that going to happen? By using My Pillow. My Pillow has incredible products. Bella Jean even has her own dog bed and loves it. She sleeps well at night, so do we. Because we also have the topper, we have the pillows, we've used the sheets, we have the towels, and we even have the slippers. So we are a family that loves My Pillow as much as my Bella Jean, and I'm hoping that your dog will love it as much as ours, and that you'll go to mypillow.com/unmasked. Again, that's mypillow.com/unmasked, and you'll get incredible discounts for your family to be setting themselves free to having a great night's sleep and having an amazing holiday season with My Pillow products. Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Katie Huff with Katie Huff Ministries, and I'm coming to talk to you today about setting yourself free. And what that means is it begins with taking control of your finances. So I was unfortunately introduced to a number of different financial planners that really didn't put me before their profit. And I'm glad to say that Kirk Elliott, PhD, their philosophy is people over profits. They don't rush you. They have a holistic approach. They took my SEP, they invested it into gold and silver, which obviously is diversifying. It may be for you, it may not, but I will tell you this, KirkElliottPhD.com/unmasked, they will go beyond making you comfortable and knowing where your money's going. And so I would just say, take control of your finances. Go to KirkElliottPhD/unmasked for a discount and great advice and peace of mind that you'll have.